I was just cleaning my husband's car. Nothing serious. Then I found a crayon drawing. Love you, Daddy. I laughed, because we don't have kids. He went quiet. That's when I saw the other name, and realized. It was a normal Saturday. The kind that feels small while you're living it. Laundry running. Coffee going cold on the counter. A grocery list half finished because I kept getting distracted. Ryan had already left that morning, said he had a client meeting across town, something about a new contract he didn't want to lose. I didn't question it. I hadn't questioned him in a long time. His car keys were sitting by the door, which meant he'd taken my car again. That annoyed me a little, but not enough to say anything. It happened sometimes when he was in a rush. I grabbed his keys instead and told myself I'd at least do something useful and clean out his SUV. It smelled faintly like fast food and something sweet, like juice or candy. Not unusual. He was always eating in the car between meetings. I started with the obvious things: old receipts, empty bottles, crumpled napkins shoved into the cup holder. Normal mess. Normal life. Then I opened the passenger side door pocket. That's where I found it. A folded piece of paper, creased down the middle like it had been shoved there quickly. I almost ignored it. Thought it was just another receipt or some flyer. But the colors caught my eye when I pulled it out. Bright crayon. Yellow, green, pink. I unfolded it slowly. It was a child's drawing. Stick figures, uneven lines, the kind of thing you see taped to refrigerators. A sun in the corner. Grass at the bottom. 3 people standing side by side. A woman in a pink dress, a man with messy brown hair, and a little girl with 2 pigtails sticking out like they were drawn in a rush. Underneath, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Love you, Daddy." I actually smiled at first. Just a quick, confused reaction. I even said it out loud to myself, "We don't have kids." It felt almost funny. Like something that didn't belong to me. I turned the paper over, expecting to see a name, maybe a school or something that would explain it. At first, I didn't notice anything. Then I looked closer at the bottom corner. There it was. Lily. Just that. No last name. No date. My chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. It wasn't panic. Not yet. Just this quiet feeling that something didn't line up. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at a drawing made by a kid I didn't know, trying to force it into something harmless. Maybe it was a coworker's kid. Ryan worked with a lot of clients. Maybe someone had their child in the car for a meeting, which didn't even make sense when I said it out loud, but I kept trying anyway. Because the alternative didn't make sense either. I folded the paper carefully and held it in my hand like it might fall apart if I moved too fast. That's when I noticed something else. In the cup holder, tucked behind a bottle cap, was a small juice box. Strawberry. The kind with a cartoon character on the front. The straw was still attached. I picked it up slowly. We didn't buy things like that. Not for ourselves. Not for guests. It didn't belong in our life. I told myself it could still be nothing. People leave things in cars all the time. It didn't have to mean anything. But now my brain wasn't letting it go. I checked the floor on the passenger side. There was a small elastic hair tie near the seat rail. Thin. Light pink. Definitely not mine. I don't even wear my hair up that way. I felt something shift inside me then. Something quiet but heavy. I didn't confront him. Not right away. I didn't even know what I would say. "Hey, whose child has been in your car?" It sounded ridiculous even in my own head. So I did what I always did when something didn't make sense. I stayed quiet. I finished cleaning the car like nothing had happened. Threw away the trash, wiped down the dashboard, vacuumed the seats. I left the juice box where I found it. I put the drawing back in the door pocket exactly how it was. Except I didn't. At the last second, I hesitated. Then I slipped the drawing into my bag. I told myself it was just in case. Just until I figured out what it was. Just until I could laugh about it later. Ryan got home around 7 that night. Later than he said he would, but that wasn't unusual. He walked in like he always did, keys on the counter, a quick, "Hey," like the day hadn't been anything special. I was standing at the stove, stirring something I hadn't really been paying attention to. "You're late," I said. "Yeah, traffic was bad," he replied, already loosening his tie. Client kept talking longer than expected. I nodded like that made sense. He came up behind me, kissed the side of my head, the same way he always did. It should have felt normal. Familiar. It didn't. I kept thinking about the drawing in my bag. We ate dinner across from each other, the TV on low in the background. He scrolled through his phone between bites. I watched him without making it obvious. Every movement felt slightly different now. Or maybe I was just seeing it differently. At one point, his phone lit up on the table. He turned it over almost immediately. Too quickly. I noticed that. I don't think I would have noticed before. "Everything okay at work?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Yeah," he said. "Just busy. End of quarter stuff." He didn't look up when he said it. I nodded again. "That's good." There was a pause. Not long, but long enough to feel. Then he changed the subject. Asked about my shift at the hospital, something about a patient I'd mentioned earlier that week. I answered automatically, but my mind wasn't in it anymore. It was back in the car. On that drawing. On the name. Lily. That night, I lay in bed next to him while he slept like nothing in the world had changed. I stared at the ceiling and went over everything in my head. The drawing. The juice box. The hair tie. And the way he turned his phone over. I told myself I was overthinking it. I told myself there had to be a simple explanation. But something didn't feel simple anymore. It felt like the beginning of something I didn't understand yet. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure I wanted to. I didn't say anything the next morning. I got up early for my shift, moved quietly around the kitchen, and left before Ryan woke up. That wasn't unusual either. My schedule at the hospital changed all the time. Long hours, early starts, late nights. It gave me an excuse not to talk. But that morning, it felt less like routine and more like avoidance. The drawing was still in my bag. I thought about leaving it at home. I didn't. I took it with me like proof of something I hadn't fully admitted yet. At work, everything felt normal on the outside. Patients, charts, nurses talking in the hallway, the constant background noise of machines and voices. I moved through it the way I always did, automatic, steady. Inside, I kept replaying everything. At one point, Lucy asked me if I was okay. Just casually, while we were restocking supplies. You look tired, she said. I am, I replied. Didn't sleep well. That was true. Just not the whole truth. She nodded and went back to what she was doing. That was the thing about work. People don't push too hard. Everyone's busy. Everyone assumes you'll handle your own life. I used to like that. That day, it felt isolating. During my break, I finally pulled the drawing out again. I smoothed it out on the table in the staff room, flattening the creases with my fingers. Lily. I stared at the name like it might tell me something new if I looked long enough. I tried to imagine a situation where this made sense. A client's kid. A coworker's child. Something temporary. Something accidental. But then I thought about the juice box. And the hair tie. And the way Ryan had been coming home later lately. Not dramatically late. Just enough to be explained. Just enough to never question too hard. I folded the paper again, slower this time, more carefully. Like it mattered. Because now it did. When I got home that afternoon, Ryan's car was gone. That wasn't unusual either. He was probably out working, doing whatever it was he said he was doing. I stood in the driveway for a second, looking at the empty space where his car should have been. Then I went inside. The house felt normal, quiet, exactly the same as always. And that's what made it worse. I walked through the kitchen, the living room, the hallway. Everything was where it should be. Nothing looked out of place. I went into our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. For a second, I just sat there. Then I reached for his nightstand. I don't know what I was expecting to find. Something obvious, maybe. Something that would make everything clear so I wouldn't have to keep guessing. There was nothing. Just his watch, a charger, a couple of receipts, random things that didn't mean anything. I opened the drawer. Same thing. Nothing unusual. Nothing that screamed secret life. I almost laughed at myself. This is ridiculous, I thought. You found a kid's drawing and now you're acting like you're in some kind of investigation. I closed the drawer and leaned back on the bed, staring at the ceiling again. But then something hit me. The car. That's where everything had been. Not here. Not in the house we shared. The house was clean. Controlled. Safe. The car was where things slipped. That night, Ryan came home earlier than usual. Hey, he said, dropping his keys on the counter. You're home early. Shift got cut short, I replied. He nodded, like that made sense. It usually did. He walked over, kissed me quickly, then went straight to the fridge. Did you eat? He asked. Not yet. I'll grab something quick, he said. I watched him move around the kitchen like he always did. Comfortable. Familiar. Like there wasn't anything hidden underneath it. Busy day? I asked. Yeah, he said. Running around a lot. Where? He paused for half a second. It was small. Most people wouldn't notice it. South Side, he said. Meeting a couple of clients. I nodded slowly. Long drive, I added. Yeah, he shrugged. Part of the job. There it was again. That same easy explanation. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You ever take clients out to eat? He glanced at me. Sometimes. Why? Just wondering. Depends on the deal, he said. Why? No reason, I said quickly. He studied me for a second, like he was trying to figure out where that question came from. Then he went back to what he was doing. I felt it again. That quiet shift inside me. He was answering. But not really. Later that night, we sat on the couch together. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching. His phone buzzed. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, then stood up almost immediately. I gotta take this, he said, already walking toward the back door. You can take it here, I said lightly. He shook his head. Better reception outside. That didn't make sense. The reception in our house was fine. I didn't say that out loud. I just watched him step outside and close the door behind him. I sat there, listening to the faint sound of his voice through the glass. Low. Controlled. Different. Like he was talking to someone he didn't want me to hear. That's when something in me stopped trying to explain things away. This wasn't one strange coincidence. This was a pattern. I waited until he came back inside. He didn't say who it was. I didn't ask. We went to bed not long after. But I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at nothing, listening to his breathing beside me. And for the first time, I let myself think the thought I'd been avoiding. What if this isn't random? What if that drawing belongs to him? The idea didn't feel dramatic. It felt quiet. And somehow, that made it worse. By morning, I had already made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I needed to know the truth first. Not pieces. Not guesses. The whole thing. And the only way I was going to get it was if I stopped asking him and started watching him instead. By Thursday, I already knew what I was going to do. Ryan mentioned it casually over dinner the night before. I've got a late meeting tomorrow, he said, not looking up from his plate. Probably won't be home until after 9. I nodded like that was normal. Because it was. That was the problem. Where at? I asked, keeping my tone light. Near the south side again, he said. Same client as earlier this week. Same answer. Same tone. Same easy explanation. I smiled a little. Busy week. Yeah, he said. Trying to close this one. He didn't elaborate. I didn't push. But something in me had already shifted past the point of just listening. I was done guessing. Thursday came, and everything felt sharper than usual. The sounds in the house, the way he moved, even the way he grabbed his keys, it all stood out like I was seeing it for the first time. He left around 6. Don't wait up, he said on his way out. I won't, I replied. I waited 10 minutes. Not because I needed to. Because I wanted to be sure. Then I grabbed my keys, my bag, and walked out to the car. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I thought I'd be shaking or second-guessing myself. I wasn't. I pulled out of the driveway and followed the route I knew he'd take to get to work. At first, everything lined up. Same turns. Same roads. Same direction. Then he missed the turn. He didn't slow down. Didn't hesitate. Just kept driving straight. I felt my grip tighten on the wheel. Okay, I thought. Maybe there's another way. Maybe traffic. I stayed back far enough that he wouldn't notice me, but close enough not to lose him. He got on a different road. One that didn't lead anywhere near his office. Now I knew. The further we drove, the quieter everything felt. Like the world had narrowed down to just his car in front of me and the space between us. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. We were still in Charlotte, but not anywhere I recognized from his work routes. This was a residential area. Smaller streets. Older houses. Trees lining the sidewalks. He slowed down. My heart started beating harder, not fast, just heavier. He turned into a neighborhood and drove slowly, like he knew exactly where he was going. Then he pulled over. I drove past him. I didn't want to be right behind him when he got out. That felt too obvious. I turned at the next corner and parked a few houses down, far enough to see but not be seen. For a second, I just sat there. This is it, I thought. This is where you find out. I got out of the car and walked back slowly, keeping my head down like I was just passing through. That's when I saw the house. It was small. Blue siding, a little worn but clean. A front porch with 2 chairs. Nothing special. Just lived in. Normal. That word kept coming back. Everything about this felt normal. Ryan got out of his car. And then the front door opened. A little girl ran out. She couldn't have been older than 6. Pigtails. I stopped walking. She ran straight toward him like there was no space between them. Like she'd done it 100 times before. He bent down, caught her easily, lifted her up like it was instinct. Like it was familiar. Like it was his. I felt something in my chest drop. Not break. Just drop. He smiled at her. Not the polite smile he gives people. Not the one he gives me sometimes when he's distracted. This was different. Real. He kissed her cheek. Said something I couldn't hear. She laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. I couldn't move. Then she said it. Clear enough this time. Daddy. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It hit anyway. My fingers went cold. For a second, everything felt distant. Like I was watching something I wasn't part of. And then she stepped out onto the porch. Amy. I didn't know her name yet. But I knew who she was the second I saw her. She wasn't dramatic. Didn't look angry or nervous. She just stood there, watching them like this was routine. Like this was their life. Ryan walked toward her, still holding the girl. He said something. She smiled slightly. And then he kissed her. Not quick. Not casual. Familiar. That's what it was. Familiar. I turned away before I could see more. I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember starting the engine. I just remember sitting there, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead like if I moved too much, everything would collapse. There was no confusion anymore. No guessing. No explanations left to reach for. The drawing. The juice box. The hair tie. The late nights. It all lined up in one moment. 6 years of something I didn't see. Or didn't want to. I sat there longer than I should have. Part of me wanted to go back. Knock on the door. Say something. Anything. But I didn't. Because I already had the truth. And somehow, that felt worse than not knowing. I drove home slowly. Every street felt different now. Like I was seeing my own life from the outside. When I walked into the house, everything was exactly the same. Same couch. Same kitchen. Same quiet. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like something I had been living in without understanding. I sat down in the living room and waited. I didn't turn on the TV. Didn't check my phone. I just sat there, replaying what I'd seen over and over until it stopped feeling real. It didn't. Hours passed. By the time I heard his car pull into the driveway, I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. I just felt steady. And that scared me more than anything, because I knew what came next. And there was no going back from it. By the time Ryan walked through the door, I already knew exactly what I was going to say. Not everything. Not some big speech. Just one question. Something simple enough that he couldn't dodge it. He stepped inside like it was any other night. Keys on the counter. Shoes off by the door. Hey, he said, glancing at me. You're still up. I was sitting on the couch, exactly where I'd been for hours. Yeah, I said. He loosened his tie, walked into the kitchen like he always did, like nothing had changed. How was your day? He asked, opening the fridge. I watched him for a second. Same voice. Same movements. Same man. But not the same life. Ryan. He paused slightly, then looked over at me. Yeah. I stood up slowly. Who is Lily? That was it. No build-up. No explanation. Just the truth, placed directly between us. He froze. Not confused. Not surprised. Just still. It was the kind of stillness that says everything before a word is even spoken. What? He said after a second. It wasn't convincing. Lily, I repeated. Who is she? His eyes shifted slightly. Not away. Just enough to think. That's when I knew. This wasn't new to him. This was something he had already prepared for. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. I nodded once, like I expected that answer. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the drawing. I held it up between us. His face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Recognition. There it was. He stepped closer, like he was trying to get ahead of it. Where did you get that? He asked. In your car, I said. Where else would I get it? He didn't answer right away. He just stared at it. Then at me. Then back at the drawing. I could see it happening in real time, the calculation. The decision of what version of the truth to give me. I was going to tell you, he said. I let out a short laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it was the only reaction that made sense. When? I asked. After she starts middle school? He ran a hand over his face, exhaling slowly. It's not what you think, he said. I shook my head. No, I said quietly. It's exactly what I think. There was a pause. Heavy. Still. Then he said it. She's my daughter. Just like that. No build-up. No hesitation. Like he'd been holding it in for years and finally let it out. I felt something shift in my chest again. Not surprise. Not anymore. How old? I asked. 6. I nodded slowly. 6. I did the math without meaning to. 6 years. We'd been married for 5. Together for almost 7. So you knew, I said. He didn't answer. You knew before we got married. Another pause. Then, quietly, yes. That was the part that hit the hardest. Not the child. Not even the other woman. The fact that he stood next to me, said vows to me, built a life with me, already knowing there was another one. Why? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded distant. Controlled. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he said quickly. It was a mistake. We weren't serious. She got pregnant and you just kept both? I cut in. He flinched slightly. I didn't want to lose you, he said. I chose you. I stared at him. Chose me? I repeated. Yeah, he said, stepping closer. I stayed. I married you. I built this life with you. And you built another one at the same time, I said. He shook his head. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Ryan? I asked. He hesitated. I felt responsible, he said finally. For her. For Lily. I couldn't just walk away. Responsible. That word landed heavier than anything else. So what does that make me? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Because there wasn't a good answer. How often? I asked. What? How often do you go there? I said. To them. He looked down for a second. A few times a week. A few times a week. I let that settle. That's not responsibility, I said. That's a life. He didn't argue. I took a step back, putting space between us. Does she know about me? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yes. I laughed again. Softer this time. Of course she does. She didn't want to interfere, he said quickly. She didn't want to break up what we have. I looked at him like I didn't recognize him anymore. What we have? I repeated. Because clearly, whatever this was, it wasn't what I thought. He stepped closer again, reaching for me. Grace, listen. I pulled my arm back before he could touch me. Don't, I said. He stopped. I love you, he said. There it was. The line that was supposed to fix everything. I didn't want to hurt you, he added. I nodded slowly. But you did, I said. He looked like he wanted to say more. Explain it. Fix it. But there was nothing left to explain. I already saw it. I already knew. So what now? He asked quietly. That question hung in the air between us. Simple. Heavy. Final. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man I thought I knew. At the life I thought we had. And for a second, I didn't have an answer. Because every option felt like losing something. And I wasn't sure yet what I was willing to lose. I didn't answer him that night. I wish I could say I had some clear moment where everything just clicked, where I knew exactly what to do. But I didn't. I just stood there, looking at him, realizing there wasn't a version of this where I walked away untouched. Grace, he said again, softer this time. We can figure this out. That word again. We. Like there was still something equal between us. I shook my head slowly. I need space. He nodded quickly, almost like he'd been expecting that. Okay, that's fine. Take whatever time you need. Time. Like time was going to change what I'd already seen. I went into the bedroom and packed a bag. Nothing dramatic. Just clothes, a few essentials, my charger, things I'd need for work. My hands moved automatically, like I'd done this before, even though I hadn't. He didn't follow me. He stayed in the living room. That somehow made it worse. When I walked back out, bag in hand, he stood up. You're leaving, he asked. Yes. For how long? I don't know. He nodded again. Too easily. I can come with you, he said. We can talk somewhere else. Get out of here. No, I said immediately. I need to think. Not with you. That landed. I saw it in his face. Okay, he said quietly. I walked past him, opened the door, and stepped outside. The air felt different. Cooler. Sharper. I didn't look back. I drove straight to Atlanta. It was late by the time I got there. Helen opened the door before I even knocked. I must have texted her at some point during the drive, but I don't remember doing it. She looked at me for half a second, then stepped aside. What happened? She asked. Not here, I said. I walked in, set my bag down, and finally felt it. Everything I'd been holding in all day. I sat on her couch and told her everything. Not in order. Not clean. Just pieces. The drawing. The car. The girl. The house. Him. Helen didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, he knew before he married you. It wasn't a question. Yes. She exhaled slowly, like she was trying to stay calm for me. That's not a mistake, she said. That's a decision. I didn't respond. Because I already knew that. The next few days blurred together. Ryan called. Texted. Left messages. I didn't answer. At first, they were long. Apologies. Explanations. Promises. I can fix this. I'll do whatever you want. I'll end it. That one sat with me. I'll end it. Not, I'll tell the truth. Not, I'll take responsibility. Just, I'll end it. Like the child was something he could switch off if I asked. I read that message 3 times. Then I put my phone down. Because that was the moment something became clear. If I stayed, what would I be asking him to do? Walk away from his daughter? Pretend she didn't exist? And if he could do that, what did that say about him? About us? Helen asked me that same question a day later, just in a different way. Could you trust him again? She said. I didn't answer right away. Because trust wasn't the only thing broken. It was everything built on top of it. The life. The routines. The small moments that felt real. I thought about our house. The kitchen. The couch. The way he used to kiss my forehead like it meant something. And then I thought about that little girl running toward him. Daddy. That word didn't belong to me. It never did. A week passed. Then 2. I stayed in Atlanta longer than I planned to. Took time off work. Told them it was a family situation. That wasn't even a lie. Ryan's messages got shorter. Less frequent. Eventually, they stopped being daily. Then they stopped altogether. I didn't reach out. Not because I didn't think about it. But because I knew what would happen if I did. We'd talk. He'd say the right things. And I might start believing them again. 3 months later, I went back to Charlotte. Not to go back to him. To move out. He wasn't home when I got there. The house looked exactly the same. That was the strangest part. like nothing had happened. I walked through each room slowly, taking what was mine. Clothes. Personal things. A few pieces of furniture. I didn't rush. There was no anger left in me. Just distance. At one point, I stood in the garage. The same place where all of this started. I looked at his car. Same car. Same door. I didn't open it this time. I didn't need to. I already knew what was inside. Before I left, I sat in the empty living room for a minute. Just to feel it one last time. Not the house. The life. Or what I thought it was. A few days later, I heard from Mark. We ran into each other by accident. We talked for a bit, awkward at first, then more normal. That's when he mentioned it. Ryan's been different, he said. Spending more time across town. I knew what he meant. He's staying there more now, Mark added. Like, full-time, I think. I nodded. That makes sense, I said. And it did. He wasn't splitting himself anymore. He just chose a side. Or maybe, that was always the real one. That thought stayed with me longer than I expected. Because it raised a question I didn't want to answer. Was I ever the real life? Or just the easier one? I still have the drawing. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe because it's the only moment everything became clear. The moment I stopped guessing. I never reached out to Amy. Never confronted her. Never tried to expose anything. I just left. Some days, I feel strong about that. Like I chose myself. Other days, I wonder if I walked away too easily. If I should have fought for something that meant that much to me. Even if it was built on something broken. I don't know. All I know is, there wasn't a version of this where I didn't lose something. So I chose the version where I didn't lose myself. But I still think about it. About what I could have done differently. About what staying would have looked like. If you were in my place, would you have stayed and tried to rebuild? Or is walking away the only choice once you realize you were never the only life you had?